This is a meeting of the Transportation Policy Board for the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization. The time is 9:05 on May 22nd, 2020. This meeting is called to if we can do, I guess, let's do roll call, and then we'll do the pledge.
All right, Marisol, you're on.
So, Commissioner Perez?
Here.
Mayor Margot?
He was here, but
Antonio Araujo? Mayor Araujo? Jay Benaziac?
Here.
Cesar Blanco?
Here.
Joseph Cervantes? Francis Guerrero? Art Fierro? Mary Gonzalez?
Here.
Tommy Gonzalez?
Here.
Yvette Hernandez?
Here.
Raimundo Lara? Manuel Leos?
Here.
Cecilia Zárraga? I can see you.
Yeah, she's here.
Chuck McMahon?
Here, Marisol, sorry.
Thank you. Chuck McMahon? Walter Miller?
Here.
Joe Moody?
Here.
Sam Morgan? Esteban Olivas? Dina Ortega?
Here.
Marisol, please mute all the phones.
Norma Palacios?
Here.
I can see. Javier Perea?
Present.
Henry Rivera? José Rodríguez?
Here.
René Rodríguez?
Renee is here.
Sam Rodríguez?
Here.
Benjamín Romero? Ricardo Samaniego?
Here.
Treviño? Mayor Trujillo,
Here.
I see that Art Fierro joined.
Yes, present.
I believe that's everybody.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start off the meeting with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible.
okay. So, just a couple of reminders, if folks could keep their microphones muted while the meeting is going, unless you'll be speaking. For those of you on video conference, I have it on the view where I can see as many of you. So if you have a question and you're on video conference, it makes it easier if you can raise your hand if you have a question. For those on the phone, just kind of shout it out and we'll go from there. A couple of notes. Ms. Monica Lombrania has retired, and the city of El Paso has chosen Ms. Yvette Hernandez to take her place. And so we welcome Ms. Hernandez to the TPB. And also, this is Jay Benajic's last meeting. I don't know if he's present, but he's, yes, I do see him there. Jay has always been a contributing member, and he's always been very active, and so we thank him for his service. There's always been an internal debate how to properly pronounce your name, so I don't know if I've butchered it all this time, but but I just want to say thank you for your service to the TPB and to the city of El Paso.
Well, I appreciate that, and you actually sound like my mom does, so you get an A+ for that. It's been a pleasure being on the board for 11 years probably now, and I think the biggest thing is just getting to know people and getting to know the members too, because it's a large commission, and it's just all the different personalities are great, and it was a pleasure knowing everybody. So that's what I take out the most. I hope I added a little transit flavor to the meetings at time to time.
No, we thank you. You've always been an active participant, and we very much appreciate it. So
The best of luck, Jay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And so those are all the announcements that I have. Next up, we have open comment period.
I don't have anybody signed up for open comments.
Okay.
And Marisol, just to know, did anybody sign up for any items later on?
No, not at the moment.
All right, so Mr. Chair, based on that, we really don't need to stop to see if anybody has open comments under the rules that we have established.
Okay, well,
Unless
folks are still welcome to, that it does get a little complex. The instructions are on the agenda, so if folks, want to speak on a particular item, they're welcome to sign up, and Marisol just let us know about that. Okay, on to the discussion items. The first item is to approve the minutes of the April 17, 2020 TPB meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I second it.
Who was the second? Fine.
DeMarco.
Somebody has feedback on their microphone. I'm sorry. Representative Blanco made the motion, and who seconded it?
DeMarco.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Is there any member of the TPB that does not approve of this particular item? Any Abstentions? There's still somebody with feedback? Okay, motion passes.
Marisol, can you mute a call-in user too? Not sure who that is.
Just mute everybody.
Okay, let's try it again, Marisol.
All right. Are you able to identify which caller it is? Okay.
I cannot, I really don't know what's going on because I can see everybody's muted and we were getting feedback, but now it's gone, I guess.
Okay, what could be, I know there was a note sent regarding the executive session meeting. Is that Teams meeting active?
Not right now.
Okay.
Well, it seems like it's gone now.
Okay. Okay, because we do have a lengthy agenda, and so we need to try to get through as many items as possible. The next item, I'm sorry, we should have taken both of these together, so to approve the minutes of the May 15th, 2020 TPB special meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Representative Blanco. There's a second.
Miller.
Okay, there's a
Miller.
second by Alderman Miller. Any members of the TPB opposed to this item? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Next item.
I can take over the item, Mr. Chair. So item 3 is approve work authorization number 1 with the Texas Transportation Institute to perform Rider 7 services. So if you recall, in March, we brought to you the master contract, the master agreement with GTI. And then we also offered and we committed to bring you individual work authorizations that would be used towards that contract. So the first task order or work authorization, task order number 1, relates to the work that we're having TTI perform under TCEQ's Rider 7 grant. Again, if you recall, we were successful in getting a grant from the Rider 7 program, TCEQ. And this is, the idea is to develop a sketch tool that will help us with emissions so that we can do, without having to go with a lengthy conformity process and emissions modeling and all that, we can use this tool so that we can evaluate the impact of changes to the plan. So we got the grant from TCEQ, and now we are hiring TTI to actually do the technical work. What you see in front of you is task order number 1 so that TTI can perform the work.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Walter Miller. I move to approve.
Okay, the motion to approve by Alderman Miller.
Second, Mayor Rodriguez.
A second by Alderman Rodriguez. If there's no further comments or any further questions, are there any members of the TPB who oppose this item? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Next item.
All right, item number 4 is authorize MPO staff to accept and execute statewide planning and research SPR Part A funding award from the New Mexico DOT and to begin agreement development process. Again, this is also really good news. This is an award from SPR funds that are really federal funds that we got from New Mexico DOT starting fiscal year 21. So with this, I'd like to have Roger give you a little more explanation about this. You're on, Roger?
Thank you. Good morning, all. Roger Williams with the El Paso MPO. These are competitive funds at the state level, in this case through New Mexico. The state planning and research funds are actually federal funds. We applied for these funds in early April through that competitive process and were selected to receive these funds. What the application that was submitted was for the Travel Demand Model 2050 MTP. This is a model that we're already in development here at the MPO with its, we have a consultant on board to assist us with that. The cost of the project is nearly $800,000, a little less than that. And what the award was here was for half of those funds. The SPR funds will assist the MPO by supplementing our planning funds. These are actually going to assist us with our operations here, and we'll be able to apply these funds to our UPWP and be able to, in the year 2021, help pay for the new travel demand model, the 2050 TDM. Another thing I would like to mention here is that these federal funds have to have a 20% match, and we coordinated with the New Mexico Department of Transportation, District 1, and Trent was in favor of this. We were allowed to get state funds through NMDOT to pay for the 20% match, and the 80% are coming from federal funds. So this is really good news. You can see the scope of work there. What it is we'll be applying it to the actual scope of work to develop the travel demand model. These funds are available in 2021, and what this item is on the agenda is to allow us to move forward with the accept these funds through this backup you see here, this letter. We have to have this back to New Mexico Department of Transportation next week on the 27th, at which point we will, if the board approves this, we'll be then able to move forward with the next step, which is developing the agreement. So you will see this coming back to you in the form of an agreement. And once we get the agreement in place, we'll be able to move forward, utilize these funds. So this is really good news for the MPO. These are coming at a great time for us to add operational funds to our budget. And with that said, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions from members of the board? Okay, if there are no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Walter Miller, move to accept.
Second.
Representative Ortega, second.
Okay. There's a motion by Alderman Miller, second by Representative Ortega. Is there any members of the TPB who oppose this item? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Next item.
Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So items 5, 6, and 7 are discussion and action to approve recommendations from the Transportation Project Advisory Committee. I'll read item number 5, and we have Chairman Greg McNichol from TPAC to give you some background. So item number 5 is amend the Destino 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and Destino 2019 to 2023 Transportation Improvement Program to amend the New Mexico 404 I-10 Bridge Replacement Project to reduce National Highway Performance Program funds, increase Border State Infrastructure funds, and add Coordinated Border Infrastructure Program funds in fiscal year 2021. This item is sponsored by New Mexico DOT.
Good morning, Greg McNichol, Chairman of the TPAC. Pretty straightforward item. From memory, sorry, it seems like a long month already. This one is all just moving some monies around, and it's pretty straightforward project. Recommended to your approval. I'll defer to New Mexico if there's any additional comments.
Right, and it was recommended by TPAC, and staff agrees on that. So if you want to move forward, Mr. Chair.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, there was a motion to approve by Representative Rodriguez, a second by, there was one by Alderman Miller, and members. Okay, well, let's go. Any member of the TPB opposed to this item? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
All right, item 6, El Paso MPO responses to comments from the 30-day public involvement for the amended Destino 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, amended Destino 2045 Transportation Conformity Report, and the Destino 2021 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program TIP.
Okay, good morning again, Greg McNichol, Chairman of the TPAC. There were, from memory, 12 to 15 comments, and they're listed here. Many of the comments kind of dealt with issues that were not a part of the amendment, but nonetheless, MPO did a good job answering those. And not anyway. So this is just a recount on those minutes of those comments that came in. They've been reviewed, and we recommend them for approval.
Mr. Chair, if I can, this is Eduardo. Yes, like Chairman McNichol said, a lot of the comments that we received were specifically related to the TechStop project on I-10 in downtown. So, not directly related to our documents. However, we obtained, we received the comments, we responded, but we will definitely pass on these comments to TxDOT, which is, very timely now that TxDOT is beginning all the preliminary engineering and the NEPA phase of the project, so that they can consider them as well. We received letters from the public, but we also received comments from the public, but we received 2 letters, one from County Commissioner David Stout, and the other one from City Rep Alexandra Anello. And again, those are transcribed into the public comment report that you see in front of you.
There's no questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda item as written.
So moved. Walter Miller.
There's a motion by Alderman Miller.
Second by Mr. Rodriguez.
The second by Representative Lizarraga. Okay. Any member opposed to this particular item? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Item 7, adoption of the amended 2045 MTP, amended Destino 2045 Transportation Conformity Report, and the Destino 2021 to 2024 TIP for submittal to the consultative partners.
This one again. Okay. This again was, I think it's, Eduardo, I'll need some help on this one. Sorry.
Not a problem. Roger, you want to chime in?
Yes, sir. So this is our final version of the amended Destino documents. We've been talking about this for quite some time. We were going through the process of amending the Destino 2045 MTP for conformity. Started back a few months ago with a TxDOT project Loop 375 from Montana to the Spur. It has some issues with utilities that belong to Fort Bliss. This is causing the project to move beyond the analysis year. So it was going to create the need for a conformity determination. We, at the same time, were developing the RMS 2020, and there were several projects in there that funds were freed up that were allowing the locals to move forward and accelerate projects. So we were having to move some things across analyses years, which were also presenting issues with conformity. So we took the opportunity to wrap this all up into one amendment. We have here your packet. It's really what it consists of is for the MTP is the new project list with updates to the projects that moved and the financial constraint element of that. There's an executive summary here that explains this is the Destino 2045 MTP. It's the document that's been in place since May of 2018. This is an amendment to that. What's important here to note is that there are no new highway projects. These are all the same projects with changes to those projects. We have not added any new planning assumptions. It's the same MTP. It has to go through the conformity process because we're in a non-attainment area. So today we have before you the amended version of the MTP, and along with that, the conformity document that we also use to demonstrate conformity for the 21-24 Transportation Improvement Program. All of that has gone out for public review and comments. Those public comments on the item right before this were the comments that were related to these documents. So we had the public involvement. I think it was basically throughout the month of April. We had one virtual public meeting. I had pretty good turnout for that. And we then have brought all these documents back through the process, and the TPAC has recommended them to you for approval. Upon approval, we'll be submitting these to our consultation partners, and we'll be asking them to go through the process of giving the conformity determination. We're hoping we can get that in a 90-day time frame, and we'd be able to get this amendment done, and it would be then we'd be operating out of the amended version of the amended Destino 2045 documents. And it lines up with the new TIP, which is also in this packet, which would start with a new fiscal year. So the goal is to get everything done in time to hit the ground running with a new TIP and have all these changes in our conforming documents. I think that's about it. If you have any questions.
Motion to approve, Palacios.
Okay.
I've got a question.
There's a question from Representative Blanco.
This is more of a, thank you, Chairman. This is more of a question for TxDOT. I know that the UTP reflects the projects and programs that may be delivered over a 10-year period. I know, and the document says that it's got to be close coordination with TxDOT. And given the governor's request for 5% savings through agencies, which TxDOT, are we concerned with anything that may affect the 2021 project list?
This is Eddie Valtier with TxDOT. So the document for you, I believe, is a 2020 document with MTP. So it doesn't affect that at all. That, as Eduardo stated, it's just moving things around and freeing up some other funds for local projects. As far as the 5%, we have not, in the agency, we have not received any direction on how that will be implemented. We don't, at this point, we don't expect anything to affect the projects, and maybe more operational, how we operate and staff and things like that. But we don't have any direction at this point. We probably will be having that in the next week or so as each state agency determines how they're going to meet that 5% cut.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I believe there was a motion to approve by Ms. Palacios.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second by Representative Rivera.
Okay, second by Representative Rivera. Any members of the board who are opposed to this item? Are there any abstentions? Motion passes. Next item.
All right, Mr. Chair, item number 8 is discussion and action to approve recommendations from the executive committee. Recommend that the TPB consider and approve the executive director's self-evaluation dated May 6, 2020, and that it approve an increase at least 2% to the executive director's base salary.
Okay. I'll take that. That wasn't my dog. The executive committee met, and one of the things that the executive committee is tasked with is going over the executive director's self-evaluation, and talking about and addressing any performance issues or anything other such. We had a very productive meeting. I want to thank the members of the executive committee, Mayor Margot, Representative Ortega, Senator Rodriguez, Mayor Perea, Alderman Miller. If I'm missing anybody, I apologize. All of them, I just want you to know, all of your EC members were just very engaged in the process, and gave very constructive feedback. And each of the members of the TPB should have also received they should have received a copy of the executive director's self-evaluation. And from that, the executive committee, as written on the agenda item, is recommending that the TPB consider and approve his self-evaluation, the executive director's self-evaluation, and that it approve at least a 2% increase to the executive director's base salary. Now, if there's any questions, so I had a conversation with Sergio before this, so it gets a little tricky because this is a personnel item. So we would have to go into executive session. If there's members who feel very strongly that or that would like to go into executive session, we have one or two options. We can try to get onto Teams as IT has prepared for us, although I foresee complications just given the size and composition of this group. Or if there's really no strong objections, we can approve the item and further discuss this, I suspect, next month when we'll likely meet in person once again.
Chair.
Alderman.
Yeah, I don't like your wording where it says that we have a harsh criticism or anything like that. No, I just have questions and concerns. That's about it. Which one is, when did we get the email? Because I get inundated with a lot of emails and I haven't seen it. And two, I do have a discussion because I don't like the fact that when there's just some stuff that I would like to take into executive. And another thing, since we're talking about an employee, does Eduardo have to be there? Because we're going to talk about him. So those are the issues that I want to address. So it's not anything bad or it's not anything good. It's just some questions that I have. That I want to address.
Sure. So just so you know, so the executive, just as background, the executive committee, when they met, did go into executive session. The executive director was not present, so that members were free to discuss his evaluation. But as it pertains to what you're having to say, if there are questions you feel that need to be answered in this particular meeting, and if there are a majority of members or a significant portion of the members who also feel the need to go into executive session for this particular meeting, and feel that the item as worded feel strongly that it should either be postponed or opposed to the item, again, we can either one, go into an executive session today. My preference, again, given the extensive conversation that was had with the executive committee, would be to approve the item as written. And then if there are just questions not strong opposition to the item as written, and you have some other things that you'd like to discuss regarding the executive director, that's a personnel matter, we can always have an executive session next month in person where we can discuss those matters.
Yeah, so one of the questions is okay, one of the things that I want to just air it out here is
Alderman, if you have questions that pertain to the executive director's performance or any things like that, it's best reserved for executive session. So I guess I would ask again, and I'd like input from other board members from the TPB. Again, the recommendation from your executive committee was just to accept the self-evaluation. We had a lengthy and productive conversation, and the 2% item, the 2% raise to the base salary is what was proposed to TPB. If there are if there are no strong, if there's not strong opposition to the way the item is written, and you have further questions, perhaps those can be better discussed in an executive session next month, when I suspect that we'll all be back in person.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Ortega.
then are you asking that we have that somebody make a motion to approve the I make.
I'm sorry, Representative. I don't know if it's just my connection, but I think you broke up a bit.
All right. I think what you're asking is if there is someone who wants to make a motion to approve item 8 on the agenda to increase by 2% the executive director's base salary. So I made that motion. I so move.
Excuse me, Chair. Sergio Estrada.
Go ahead.
The only modification that I would suggest to the agenda item number 8 would be to change the wording to consider and approve the executive director's self-evaluation dated May 6, 2020, and that it approve an increase of 2% to the executive director's base salary, so that there's no ambiguity on what the increase is as part of this specific motion.
Okay. Representative, is that modification okay?
Yes, I accept the modification. And I think then we can have discussion after the motion has been made and second. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
A second.
Chairman, yes, I'll second that motion. This is Walter Miller.
It was seconded. There was a second by Representative Fierro. Okay, so are there any members? Is there any further questions or comments? Okay, are there any members of the board that are opposed to this item with the modification that the change, it says that would, instead of reading at least, would say an increase of 2%?
I oppose for the fact that I cannot have a discussion about this.
Okay, and again, Representative, we will go into executive session.
I understand. All I'm saying is I oppose because I can't have my answers questions, my questions answered. That's it.
Okay. So does any other member opposed to this item? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Again, I'd like to thank the members of the executive committee for their active participation and for the time that they took during this process. I truly value your input and all the time that you had put into this process. On to reports.
All right. Item number 9, presentation on the impacts of cross-border crossing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is an item that will be presented by David Coronado from the City of El Paso International Bridges. David, are you on?
Hi, morning. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So can I share my screen real quick? I want to share the PowerPoint.
Marisol, can you make David there you go.
Okay. Let me get set up. Give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Eduardo. So my name is David Coronado. I'm with Bridges with the City of El Paso. Thank you for the invitation, Eduardo, and board chair and the board members. Really appreciate the time. I'm going to go through a few slides very quickly. I know you've got a few other items on the agenda, so I'll try to be brief. But if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me as I go. So before I go into the content, I wanted to give you some background. So the City of El Paso owns 3 international bridges within the city limits. We own Paso del Norte, Stanton, and the Isleta Bridge on the east side. So those 3 bridges we own and we manage and operate. We do not own BOTA. And so the data that I have here today does not include BOTA data for crossings. The data that I have here today for you all today to look at is southbound data from El Paso to Juarez through city-owned bridges. So it's our own data. People are typically used to looking at data, crossings from CBP, and that's northbound data from Juarez to El Paso. But today it's southbound data. So I'm going to give you the latest data. The data that I have here today is data from last night at midnight. So I just updated it this morning with the new numbers from the team. And it's data that we track with our system as users pay the toll. That's one transaction in our system. We collect that, and then we create all these slides for you all to look at. So having said that, again, data from the City of El Paso. Before I go into the numbers, just wanted to give you a summary of what's happening in El Paso in terms of activity at the bridges and also elsewhere in the US and in Texas. So there is no question that with the travel restrictions that the feds, the DHS, and the White House put in place to limit the movement of people, that's had a huge impact in crossings from El Paso to Juarez, Juarez to El Paso. And so you'll see that here today. It's impacted tremendously the crossings for vehicles and pedestrians. Cargo was not included in that order. And so cargo really, the impact that we're seeing in cargo is mostly due to the closure of businesses. And those impacts, sort of the economic impacts, not so much the health orders or the health effects of the social distancing. And so on the cargo side, we talked to Index via our bridge steering committee. Index is the largest association of maquiladoras in Mexico. And what Index tells us right now, as of, I want to say it was about last week or 2 weeks ago, is that 30% of their members, maquiladoras in Juarez, remain open. 70% are closed. So again, that's a huge blow to production in Mexico, in Juarez, and employment and activity, business activity in Juarez and in the region. So you'll see those impacts as well on the cargo crossings. In terms of the economy, most economists believe that already now today we are in a recession, and you'll see again those figures in a second here. But we expect a recovery, a slow recovery in the second half of this year. That's what most economists believe. We're not going to see the same levels as pre-COVID-19 in the economy as far as the economy goes for, we believe, a long time. So definitely not a V-shaped recovery, definitely not a U-shaped recovery. They're actually saying that it's more of a Nike shape, a sharp decline and then a slow recovery. The Nike logo. So it's sort of, think about that as you see all these numbers. So this is a data from, again, our system, daily crossings at city-owned bridges. And we have here percentage drop looking at numbers in crossings today, comparing them against 2018 numbers. We're using 2018 because in 2019, we had the migration crisis. So 2019 was definitely not a normal year for us. So it's not a good year to use as a reference. So the baseline here is 2018 crossings for vehicles, for pedestrians, and for cargo. And so we see here that personal vehicles in blue. Again, once the DHS put in place that order and March 20th, we see that sharp decline. We bottomed on vehicles with a 69% drop in crossings a day, and now we are up to 33%. So that's it's a good sign, right, for us to start to slowly recover back again in crossings. Pedestrians, we bottomed at 82%. Similar impact once the order came in place to restrict crossings to non-essential travelers. And then we are now at 71%. So this one is a really, really slow recovery for us that we're seeing here. On the cargo side, we're just over 30% decline right now. We bottomed at 42%. And you see that the effect on cargo was delayed, like I said, was not impacted by the order, but it was impacted by stay-at-home, closure in businesses, not only in El Paso, but also in Juarez. And so you see that slow decline, and we're starting to go back up again. So again, we're tracking all these numbers as we go, as we have new orders, new phases of reopening. We'll see those changes over time. We'll keep you posted on those changes. On the vehicle side, we have here me trying to. One second. Okay, so on the vehicle side, again, similar impact. We have here the uptick in traffic. Now you see that uptick. There's two phases in traffic on vehicles. One is the sharp decline, right away after the crossings were stopped for non-essential travel. You see that uptick after we started to see the state of Chihuahua doing temperature checks on the Mexican side. That increased wait times from El Paso to Juarez, at Bogota especially, because that's the one that takes the most traffic because it's free. And so those users were avoiding those wait times and trying to spread across the system. And so you see those two spikes on the vehicle side. Again, we're up right now. We'll keep you all posted on what's happening. At the bottom here, though, we're tracking here the crossings by day, by hour. So by day of the week, Monday through Sunday, by hour, and you see the peaks and valleys, right? The line in orange is pre-COVID-19 levels, hourly crossings for Zaragoza on the vehicle side. Black line is current levels today. So you see that we're nowhere near close the levels before COVID-19, and we're trending in the same way with the same peaks and valleys throughout the day, but at lower levels. Pedestrians, same story, right? We see the sharp decline, like I said, a slow recovery. On the cargo side, again, we believe cargo has already bottomed out, and you see that here on around early May, and we're starting to trend upward as again more businesses open. We're starting to see that line, pick back up again, the traffic pick back up again. Just a few weeks ago, I believe the Mexican government and Mexico they added aerospace, mining, construction, and automotive manufacturing plants as on the list of essential businesses, which is good for the economy in the region. And so again, that's also going to help increase those crosses on the cargo side. On the bottom, same story, hourly data for cargo crossings for each day of the week, Monday through Saturday. They're closed on Sundays. Cargo is closed on Sundays. You see here pre and post COVID-19, the orange and the black line follow each other in the morning hours. In the afternoon, it drops. So we believe that that's due to the fact that there's not as much need for those supplies to come back and forth because of those businesses being closed. And so those trips are being made in the morning, and the second, third trip for each truck driver is not happening anymore because of that again, slowdown in production and supply chain disruption on the cargo side. So I forgot to mention that on the vehicle side, pedestrian side, the city of El Paso provided relief to CBP with funding paid for by bridge users and allows the city to open more lanes with additional officers and additional overtime for CBP officers from Juarez to El Paso. So we open more lanes, decrease wait times, funded by bridge users, not by tax dollars, not by sales taxes. And that program, we stopped it as early as the first weekend when we had the non-essential travel being restricted from Juarez to El Paso. So we stopped traffic. We stopped that program on the vehicle side. We stopped it. We continue to not fund. It's just simply not needed right now. The wait times are just not there. Traffic is it's just not needed. Simply put, on the cargo side, though, we're continuing to provide relief to CBP with those officers. We're trying to help the business sector, trying to incentivize production, trying to help the supply chain. But having said that, because we are seeing that downward trend, we are tracking wait times, and that's what I'm showing here today for you all to see. You see on the top graph, wait times Monday through Saturday. You see those peaks in the middle of the afternoon, and then the downward trend later in the hours. The bars in blue or green are the the hours that we cover overtime with CVP. So you see that the spike, for example, here on Wednesday on the top, see the spike, city comes in, they open more lanes, and the wait time decreases. So you see the benefit of that program. Now, having said that, 2018, 2019, and 2020 numbers are pretty consistent for the first quarter. So the first 3 months of the year. For the month of April, we have seen a decrease in wait times. So we are right now looking at data from CVP, whether or not we need to continue the program and take the savings. If it's not needed, we'll cut the program. We've already alerted CVP about that. We've already alerted the industry in Juarez and our committee. We are tracking this. So we're gonna make a decision pretty soon here on whether or not the program is still needed, given the fact that the crosses have bottomed out. Images of the bridges, you know, this is what you see all day today. Empty bridges pretty much on vehicles and pedestrians. And we see here PDN on the top left, looking south, PDN on the top right, looking north, Zaragoza on the left, looking north, Zaragoza on the right, looking south. You see the bridges are empty for pedestrians and vehicles, but they are not empty for cargo trucks. You see those trucks still continuing flowing throughout the day pretty consistently. But again, we are tracking that activity as well. So like I said, the state of Chihuahua started to do temperature checks in Juarez for every passenger in a vehicle and also pedestrians. That increased wait times from El Paso to Juarez, that then pushed traffic away from Bora into the city bridges. And that's when you see that spike in crossings around early April, middle of April during that time. And you see those pictures. I'm sure you've heard about the committee that we have. The Bridge Steering Committee is a pretty active group. We have over 20 agencies represented from El Paso and Juarez. Government agencies at the local, state, federal level. We also have the RMA, we have the kind of El Paso, we also have nonprofits like Index, Association, Macular Association. We have a lot of representation from bridge users, especially on the cargo side, that help us track what's happening at the bridges. Here in this picture here, Fideicomiso de Puentes, the state of Chihuahua, was giving us an update on their ITS project. So we get updates on projects. We work out, scheduling issues, overtime issues, tracking what's happening in the industry, what they're seeing. We get their input. So we're trying to make it a dynamic group. This is one of those last meetings that we had in person. Now we're meeting in teams. So we're hoping to meet with them in person pretty soon here. But we'll continue meeting with them every month, actually. This is a really good project that we started last year with the city council when the city council approved the use of city bridges budget to go into a partnership with Colegio de la Frontera Norte, University in Juarez, Research University in Juarez, and in Tijuana. And so now we were doing surveys at the bridges before COVID-19, starting as early as the last quarter of 2019. We stopped the surveys in the middle of March. They pulled the surveyors from the field for safety concerns. But during those 6 months, during those 2 quarters, last quarter of 2019 and first quarter of 2020, we collected about 14,000 surveys. So right now, our team of bridges is actually looking through that data, cleaning it up. And then we expect to go to City Council soon with an update on the progress for this project and the data we collected during those 6 months. It's a lot of data. It's taken us quite a bit of time to clean it up and create the report. But again, essentially, we're interviewing users as they cross the bridge from Juarez to El Paso, whether they're walking or in a vehicle, at every single bridge, Monday through Sunday, from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. At night. And so the data that we're collecting is we're asking them, how often do you cross, residency status, where do they live, U.S. citizen, Mexican citizen, how much money they spent, in Juarez when they went to Juarez or when they're coming to El Paso, what businesses they visited, reason for the visit. So it's a lot of really good information that we don't have right now. It didn't exist before. This project is year-round. Now COVID-19, we stopped to put it on pause. And so we're hoping to, again, getting started, getting the surveyors out in the field again and getting started with the project. And so again, we'll try to go to City Council pretty soon here once we have the data prepared and finalized for those 2 quarters. You see here the data for the unemployment rate. It's close to 15% now. This is a number that came out today. This morning actually was released by the state of Texas. We were at 3.8% in February. So just in 2 months, you see that huge spike. It's surreal to see the numbers spike so high for the month of April, almost 15% employment rate. We were expecting to see 15 to high teens numbers during the peak of this recession. We're already there, and you see that we're already higher than we were at the peak back in the Great Recession towards the end at almost close to 10%. Again, like I said, we expect to be a sharp decline and then a really slow recovery going up. All these metrics, all the health effects and the economic effects are tied, one and one. And so hopefully we'll start to see this peak and then start to trend downward. As far as unemployment claims in El Paso County, we track these as well on a weekly basis. At the peak in the first week, on the 22nd of March, it increased 27-fold, close to 28-fold. Again, sobering numbers, and then we're starting to trend downward again as we go from week to week. As far as the unemployment rate, we also track it using zip code data, zip code level data, and you see the hardest hit impacts is where the rest, where workers live in the far east side, northeast, and then the west side of the city. You see here also the industrial production in the U.S.
Could you go back to the slide before? I just have a question real quick.
Sure.
The peak that you're saying that we already reached, is it going to go any higher than what it is right now in unemployment?
Yes, we would not be surprised if it continues to go up. So what we're hearing in the U.S. is that in the U.S., the economists are saying, the Federal Reserve is saying that they are going to go from 15 to 20%, perhaps at the peak, 25%. We expect that number to be lower in Texas. Texas typically has a lower employment rate than the rest of the U.S. But again, high teens for Texas, probably high teens as well for El Paso. So I would not be surprised if this number here continues to increase. Again, like I said, with every health order, every new phase that we enter, open Texas, the numbers will reflect that increase in activity, that increase in opening up of businesses, whether it's at 25%, 50%. But unless we reach full capacity, 75%, 85% capacity of those businesses and activity, we're not going to see a real recovery in the numbers. So again, it'll be a slow transition. Like I said, the health impacts and the economic impacts are tied. And it's just we'll continue tracking these numbers.
So my next question to you is, how do you see projections when we're at 75 or 100% open the economy? What number will it drop? Would it go back to or stay at relatively middle of what we're projecting as a high, or is it going to be around 8%?
So that's hard to say, right? Without a vaccine, without an approved treatment, it's hard to be able to open up to full capacity. Again, like I said, we expect to see a slow recovery in the second half. But again, it might take us 1, 2, 3 years to go back to pre-COVID-19 levels. And then, so just look at this picture here that I have. I'm going to go through the slide. This is my second to the last slide.
Okay.
You look at the drop back in the Great Recession in 2007, late 2007 into 2009. It took us 2 years, a year and a half almost, to bottom out and then start back up again. Right here, we made that drop in 2 months. This recession was not driven by a housing bubble, by a crisis on the banking side. It was just driven by the health impacts of COVID-19. So totally different recession. Like I said, it's that Nike shape, right? The sharp decline, slow recovery. So again, without the vaccine, without the approved treatment, this is going to linger as we transition and opening up Texas and El Paso again over time.
Thank you. That's very informative.
Sure. And then you see also how this data at the bottom is trade volume, through the El Paso sector. As we see that blue line continue to decline and then bottom out, we'll see the same employment numbers in Juarez and Maquiladoras to also take a dive, and we'll see trade take a dive as well. We're hoping that we've already seen the largest blow on the cargo side. We're hoping that has bottomed out. Again, we'll continue tracking this in the numbers. And then the exchange rate has been extremely volatile, pesos to dollars. Right now it's at about $24, $23, 23 pesos per dollar. So this not only is going to impact us right now, but in the long term, if this continues to be the case, even as the non-essential travel restrictions are lifted, Mexicans have now less money to spend in El Paso because of the exchange rate. They have less purchasing power. So again, this is going to impact sales taxes in El Paso. This is going to impact activity in El Paso. Again, this started as early as March, the huge spike, and it's been moving a lot over the last few weeks. We track this at Bridges because we are the only city department that accepts pesos as a form of payment because of our customers. And so we also need to make sure that we adjust our rates in pesos so that we don't incur losses in those crossings. And with that, I'll stop, and I'm happy to answer any questions they may have.
I just want to say that it was very informative and very on point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to say, before I open it up for questions or comments, Mr. Coronado, thank you very much. You also presented to the Border Trade Advisory Committee, which is chaired by the Texas Secretary of State. Everybody was very impressed by the level of detail in your presentation. So we appreciate it very much. If you could you send the latest copy or the latest version of this, since you said it's as of midnight, to Eduardo? He can send that to the members of the TPB.
Yes, I actually did it before the meeting started. They already have it, so they can send that out to all of you.
Oh, great. And thanks for all your work on that to make it as current as possible. We appreciate it.
Sure. You're welcome.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Walter Miller.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Mr. Coronado. Again, a excellent presentation. Lots of information there. I appreciate it. I was particularly interested in your committee that you're forming. How do you choose members to that committee, and how is it an open committee, or what is that process?
Good question. So thank you for the question. I didn't spend so much time on this, but glad you asked. So this committee, the city manager back in 2015 got it started with CEP as the first member, CEP in the city of El Paso. Since then, the Bridges Department has been completely restructured. Now we have more staff at Bridges. We're able to do this work for the city and for the public and improve the bridge system. So since 2015, we put together this group with the help of CBP and Aduana on the Mexican side. We've continued to add more members over time. So the last meeting that we had early this month, we had about 55 people attend the meeting. That's the largest group that we've had present. Again, it includes Index, Maquiladoras, government agencies from both countries, and it's a really active group. We keep it on the operational level. So these are boots on the ground. These are bridge users. We have truck drivers attend the meeting. We have owners of trucking companies attend the meeting. And so this is very much a working group. It's the folks that work at the bridges. We have our toll collectors are at the meeting to look at what's happening out there and tracking the trends. You know, we hear from the industry, get their feedback. We, for example, on the CAP and P3 program with the overtime, we told them this month, you know, we're tracking the numbers. If it's not needed, we'll pull the funds and take the savings. You know, and so we're building the users. It's a wide mix, and we meet with them monthly. When we talk to other communities in the U.S.-Mexico border about this strategy that the city, you know, we have here, they're not doing this, which is, to me, it's just shocking. They don't have a group set up like this where it's operational. We track projects, we work on scheduling, on overtime, on all these programs. So it's a really useful group for us to bounce ideas off. We can stare at the data all day long, but unless we know what's happening out there, it's useless. So this helps us get there.
Is it an open meeting, or do you need an appointment to that committee, or what is the membership process?
The membership is, you know, it's an open meeting. It's essentially bridge users, bridge operators. We don't have a structure for that. It's a working committee. It's an open forum. So yeah, we continue to add members to the group. We meet with them on the first Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. We've had that since 2015, and we've only canceled one meeting, and that's when the Pope came to Juarez. We simply had, it was on the same week, we just had to cancel it. But other than that, we met with them every single month with this group. We're really happy to have them be involved and help us with all these projects.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Eduardo. I just want to, give a kudos to David. I've said it many times. I mean, like he said, this committee is unique. And when you were there, when he presented these numbers at BTAC, the reaction that we got from the other regions, from Laredo and the Valley, was very positive. They don't have something like this, and certainly they're not tracking, the traffic movements and all that with the level of detail that David and his group are. So, that's a really good thing. And then back to what Walter Miller's comment, David also extended the invitation. Obviously, this started as a city committee. Their concern obviously was more focused on the city-owned bridges. But the county of El Paso is also represented now because of the Tornillo Guadalupe Bridge. And, we really want also to get the New Mexico folks involved. The New Mexico Border Authority, it's not easy to get them involved in our stuff, but it's important to see all of the bridges, all of the crossings in the region as a system. So from Santa Teresa all the way to Tornillo, and this committee, again, it's awesome. The level of the cooperation and coordination that we have is amazing. And we've said it many times. Especially on border stuff, decisions are made in Washington, D.C. and Mexico City, but we're the ones that have to carry the burden here locally. And a lot of the issues and challenges are resolved here at the local level. So again, kudos for that, David and City of El Paso.
Yeah, and getting current data is always a challenge. So I appreciate the work that you put into it. And one of the comments that was made at the Border Trade Advisory Committee was that everybody along the border should be doing similar reports to this, and so everybody was very impressed. So thank you, Mr. Coronado.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, moving on to item number 10, RMS 2020 update. So this is just a brief update on to you on where we are on RMS 2020. As you all know, we have following the strategic plan, which RMS 2020 is. We've been making some tip amendments in the last few months. Very specific actions on individual projects. But what we wanted to show you is, this is a spreadsheet that we've been using. It's serves its purpose, but it's not very nice. Now that we have and if we can show the next exhibit, Gabby, please. So now that spreadsheet has been converted into the using the RMS 2020 color scheme and identity. It's basically the same information, but we're going to be using this to prepare the monthly reports to the policy board as we continue moving forward with individual projects, but also using the whole branding for RMS 2020 to prepare the documentations as we also communicate with Austin and the commission and the TxDOT administration to move and push for funding for our projects. So you'll be seeing now this more formal spreadsheet. And then the next exhibit is also the map. We just got this draft yesterday, so we're still working on the cosmetics. But again, it all follows the same color scheme and the theme for RMS 2020. The other thing is we also have started, and we will continue to have individual project meetings individually with the project sponsors. We want to be able to have regular meetings to track progress on these projects and get together with all the different parties involved in projects, whether it's TxDOT, the local government, in some cases the RMA, the MPO. So projects, in order for them to move forward smoothly, we need to coordinate agreements, engineering issues, right-of-way issues, planning issues, if the project is in the TIP, STIP, and so on. So these monthly meetings are going to be held. And they're also going to help us to prepare the briefing that we're going to come into to provide to the policy board and to other governing bodies as needed. So that's just a very brief summary of where we are in RMS 2020. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Members of the TPB? Okay, there are none. Eduardo, okay, thank you for the report.
Right. Okay, item 11, demographics and Delphi process for the 2050 travel demand model. We had Salvador Gonzalez from our office, but he's having internet Wi-Fi problems, so I don't think he's on the call. Is he? Are you up there, Sal? Marisol, or do we have him on the phone? Marisol?
Oh, no, not yet. He's
Okay.
having issues logging in.
Okay, all right. So we can give you the briefing here. Roger, you want to give it a shot?
I can give it a shot. I don't know that I can do it nearly as well as Salvador does. So
Let's go ahead, and then we can tag team it as
Yeah.
needed. So if you want to
So-
go ahead and
Or if
Let's
he's
go
gonna
to
get,
the-
if he's going to get on the call, we can just move to another report and come back to this one.
Marisol, I don't think he is able to get on, right?
Let me try to get him on. If you can give me a second, I guess if we can skip this item and then come back to it.
If that's okay with you and the
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go to the next report, and then we can always come back to this one.
Okay,
If he's
all right.
on.
So let's move on to item number 12. Is 2050 MTP development and call for projects. This is you for sure, Roger.
Thank you, Eduardo. So this is a update to the long-range transportation plan. This is the Regional Mobility Strategy 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, RMS 2050 MTP. Next slide, please. The long-range transportation plan is on a 4-year cycle. That's the first thing we'll talk about here under the main topics. After that, we'll move on to the call for projects, and then the virtual public visioning meetings, and then needs assessment, goals, objectives, and performance, and then financial forecast. Okay, next slide, please. So in non-attainment areas, our long-range plan is on a 4-year cycle. So the current Destino 2045 MTP was adopted by the TPB on May the 18th, 2018. FHWA and FTA gave us a conformity determination on November the 6th, 2018. This reset the 4-year clock. So the RMS 2050 MTP, we have also a schedule in your packet. And according to the schedule, the anticipated adoption date for the TPB is going to be on February the 18th, 2022. At which point we'll submit it for conformity to our consultation partners, and we need to get the conformity determination done before November the 6th, 2022. That is the 4-year cycle that we're talking about here. So we are in good shape to meet these times and these dates. Next slide, please. The call for projects. Project call went out on May the 11th, and it's through June the 22nd. We have developed a website for the agencies to submit their projects to us. This is the EPMPO ElPasoForward.com. There you will be able to coordinate with Brian Miskimen or myself to get your username and password set up. And what we need is for you to submit basically your entire application will be the electronic project request form and the congestion management process questionnaire. This is the same PRF that entities have been using and are familiar with it. The CMP questionnaire is new. We have to have a CMP kept up to date. This is a congestion management process that's required of us here in a transportation management area with a population over 200,000. That's a requirement. And as far as the non-attainment area goes, it is also a requirement so that we can dictate or determine, I should say, how to address moving forward with capacity projects. Next slide, please. We are working on these dates to get a virtual public visioning meeting packet set up for the public to identify the community's vision for the regional transportation system. Tentative dates are Wednesday, July the 8th, 2020, 5:30 to 7, and Monday, July 13th, 2020, from 1:30 to 3. These will be actual live virtual meetings where MPO staff will be available to work with the public in this workshop setting. We're setting it up so that it'll also be able to be run throughout the June 14th to July 19th timeframe, where there will be a virtual workshop that the public will be able to join in and get their comments and make their needs known through an interactive map type and exercises that will be preset so that they can get the same information that they would get in a live virtual meeting. But this will be available to them throughout this entire process, a little more than a month, so that they can come at their convenience and work through that virtual meeting. Next slide, please. The needs assessment. Obviously, these are the things that we need to tackle and make sure of, and we're going through that process now at the MPO to get what are those needs through many different avenues. We're looking at current plans, and we're looking at studies, and we're also using the Destino 2045 MTP to do analyses. We need to assess the safety, operation, and maintenance of our planning area, roadway, transit, bicycle and pedestrian, freight, and then the ports of entry and border planning as well. So all of this is ongoing already and will feed into the process as we get through the virtual public meetings as well, to get feedback from not only the public, but stakeholders in the region. Next slide, please.
Roger, I'm sorry, this is Yvette Hernandez. If you could just further explain roadway, are you looking at condition of roadway? Are you looking connectivity of roadway? What exactly are you defining on that one?
Yeah, we'll be looking at all of those things, but one of the main things we're looking at is the congestion levels on the roadways and where the main areas of concern are, so that we can it's really multimodal. We're looking at everything together. So we'll be doing some scenario planning, and we'll be looking at where the issues are as it relates to the congestion, and then how it will could be alleviated by perhaps additional transit and bicycle and pedestrian. So we'll be looking at, as we're going through the needs assessment, we'll be doing some different scenarios. Those are already ongoing. We're already using the Destino 2045 MTP. We'll also be looking at the roadway conditions and how, where the main issues are. That also ties into the one up above, the bullet up above on the operations and maintenance. So many things we're looking at there. We'll be addressing that through the national goals and the condition of the roadways and bridges. So many things are actually happening during the multimodal needs assessment. I hope that answers your question, Yvette.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So goals, objectives, and the performance. We'll be engaging the public, stakeholders, the TPAC, and the TPB to provide the framework for the goals and objectives to guide the decision-making for prioritizing and selecting strategies and projects. So all of those things we talked about too ahead of this slide with the needs assessment will feed into working through the process to develop the goals and objectives. And then also, as far as the performance, we need to identify quantifiable performance measures to track the system performance of the strategies, the scenarios that we're running, and the projects that will best address those needs. Next slide, please. And of course, the financial constraint element. The federal regs require that the project list to fall within the financial capabilities of the community. Well, they're saying a lot there, and that basically what it amounts to is that we only have a certain amount of financial resources. We're working on that right now, trying to determine, what they are, and as we move forward and looking at the budgets and what's happening at the state levels, and we realize there's cuts, and we'll be looking at what's happening in the future as far as a continuing resolution for the FAST Act and what the future revenues look like. But in the end, whatever the amount of revenues that we're able to justify as reasonable for the region, we'll have a certain amount of projects that have to fit within that and those resources. And then the final project list included in the MTP must be fiscally constrained, i.e. the anticipated funding available must be greater or equal to the anticipated cost of the projects. So this, like I was explaining, is something we're already looking at, and we're starting that process right now, and it'll be ongoing until we get to a point where we're able to justify different scenarios of projects that we can present that would best fit the needs of the region. And then we'll take those once we can get the financial constraint, and that's what we'll be moving forward with to develop the analyses moving and forecasting out into the future. Next slide, please. And that's it. If you have any questions or if there's anything else we need to follow up on, I'd be happy to address that.
Yes, Roger, thank you. I have a question, Representative Lizárraga. Is there a scoring process that takes place?
Yes, ma'am. We are working on that. We'll be keeping the policy board up to date on this. We're developing based on what we have already, but it needs to continue to move forward with developing what that criteria is going to be. There are things that we've used, and it's in our current scoring and prioritization. For example, what we used with the amendment to the Destino 2045 MTP, and what we've had in place even before that. But it is being updated. It needs to be looked at from several different angles. One, the national performance measures, where we're talking about the condition of the pavement and the bridges. And then also we need to be looking at safety, and we need to be looking at the congestion and the travel time index for freight. That's one part of it. We also incorporate all of the national goals from the FAST Act into that. And then we will come back to the policy board to present what we think and to get approval from the TPB on what we think, what you think that the scoring and the ranking should be. Those are the things that are going to happen over the course of the next few months. So the call for projects is out there now. We're collecting all that information. And by the time we get to the point where we're actually going to prioritize those projects, and we'll be using a tool called Decision Lens. This is a tool that we used for the amendment for the Destino documents. That software is only as good as the information you plug into it. So that's the criteria we're working on right now to score projects.
Thank you.
Roger, this is Eduardo. If I may clarify, the Decision Lens, or the quick answer to your question, Representative Lizárraga, is that yes, we are going to be evaluating and prioritizing projects using Decision Lens, and which is the tool that we use to evaluate the projects that made it to the RMS 2020. Right. So like Roger said, we just need to improve on what we did last year. But yeah, the intent is really to use the same quantitative process to evaluate and prioritize projects. But there's a lot of work that we need to do between now and then.
Okay, so again, this is the new long-range transportation plan. It is on a 4-year time cycle, and we're starting it actually with more time than we did when we had the Destino. There's, I think, about 22 months of time here for us to do our internal work, and then we're giving the consultation partners about a 9-month time frame to do their work. So overall, it's a lot less. It's not as tight and should go more smoothly than it did with the Destino 2045 MTP. It was about 15 months when we had to do that one. So this is much better. We're already moving forward with the development of all the needs, and like I said, the call for projects is currently out.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, let me ask Marisol, any luck in getting Sal? Because item 11 and 12 really are tied together. So I guess not. All right, so then let's move on to item 13.
She said,
Eduardo?
Yes.
Eduardo?
Hello?
He's on the line.
Oh,
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I think you need to speak up, Sal, but
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, so my apologies, worst of Murphy's Law, right? I don't have internet access, but I'll try explain what's going on with, first of all, with the TDM. You know, our travel demand model is something that the new version, we're developing that, and we'll be able to forecast travel up to year 2050. So this is a very important product for the MPO, and it is the best tool that we have, and it is at the level of state of the art. We have one of the best consultant teams in the U.S. helping us with that. And so as part of that, we need to forecast travel. An important input to that is demographics. And so a lot of work is going into doing the best demographic forecasting that we can. And to do that, we have a team of experts looking into employment and population as also important inputs into our model. You know, employment, place of residency and place of work trigger travel. And so we need to do the best job on that part. And for doing that, we need some feedback from the community. And as part of that work, we have developed this, or we are looking into this Delphi process, what we call a Delphi process, where our team of experts will provide a first forecast for different years into the future, and the community would provide feedback for that information. So since we have now this contingency, we would need to do this through the web. And so this has been a challenge, but I think we can manage it. And so we are inviting the community. Several of you probably right now have received invitations to be part of this group of stakeholders that will look into the forecast. And that is on one side is how much El Paso area will grow, and also where will that grow go. And so this Delphi process will look into will go into that and get some feedback from the community. We are planning to have this Delphi by the second week of June. And so we are sending invitations. We have a list right now, a list of close to 90 stakeholders. That's people in the community from from the private sector, developers, of course, people in the financial area from different businesses, as well as different public organizations. TxDOT, of course, is New Mexico DOT, the city of El Paso, and water utilities, electric utilities. So different stakeholders that have something to say about growth and where they think growth is going. So they will look into our numbers and we'll try to come up with a consensus. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what the Delphi process is. Again, the challenge is that now it needs to be done through the web, and so we encourage all of you that will be receiving invitations are encouraged to register and be part of this process. Again, the first or the kickoff meeting will be the second week of June. We're still gathering details on the different agendas of the stakeholders, so to come up with specific dates and hours of the day to have those meetings. So we encourage all of you that will be receiving the invitation to be part of this very important process. So again, that in a nutshell is what we're doing on the Delphi and on our TDM.
Mr. Chair, this is Eduardo. Can I ask Gabby to advance the slides just to make sure that we're not missing good information? Well, that's about the TDM. Next one, please.
Yes, and I guess I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not able to look at the slides, but you saw on the first set of slides, it's our TDM. Travel. So.
Okay, Sal, I think you're breaking up, but Sal, let me just finish here by saying or reaffirming what Salvador said. Gabby, can you put the slide on the Delphi group or the Delphi process?
I'm sorry, I got.
Yeah, there we go. So again, as Salvador was explaining, the consultants and MPO staff, we really need help from the community to help us get the best information and to improve our projections for the future. And the projections are really where will the population be, employment, and all that. So the Delphi group is really where we ask, we get a group of people, group of experts from different, from the public sector, private sector, developers, and all that, to reach some sort of consensus on what is the most likely distribution of population and employment in the future. So again, as Salvador said, we strongly ask you to help us with this process. It's tremendously important. It's the base for our travel demand model that, as you all know, we use to forecast the future traffic and travel patterns and congestion areas, hotspots, and so on. So again, the invitations have gone out, and if you directly participate, great. If not, members of your staff, please encourage them to respond and to participate in the process. I think that's all we have on this one for now.
Sure. I've got a question for Mr. Caldwell.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Does this process also include and look at new and alternative roads to ease traffic wherever the city's growing?
Well, the Delphi process is more for helping us understand where the population and employment is going to grow. When it comes to identifying solutions for the projected congestion, that's also part of the MTP process, like Roger was explaining. Once we identify, for example, congestion hotspots, the question that we all are asking is, well, which is the best way to address those congestions? Congestion hotspots. Is it through highways? Is it through transit? Is it a combination? So the MTP, the 2050 MTP process will find the solutions to those. So that's really when you talk about the highways and whether new ones or expansions and all that, it'll be more during the development of the MTP.
Could also maybe taking in sites before they're built with businesses and residential areas prior, absorbing that area.
Absolutely. That's why the demographic exercise is so important, because so that it's a basis for how and where our metropolitan area, our MPO area, is going to grow, right? So if we know that there are interest or some developments that are going to happen in a certain part of the region, it's important for us to know that so that we can forecast that growth and the traffic and travel patterns that come with that, so that we can find the best solutions to address those transportation needs.
Sure, appreciate that.
Eduardo, I had a question regarding the cell phone data. We had received a presentation previously regarding that. I think the city had a consultant who had also worked on cell phone data. Is there going to be collaboration on that, or is there possible duplication with this effort on the travel demand model?
No, actually, and we are working together with the initiative that the city of El Paso is doing with a model that is called Replica. Replica and the travel demand model really do different things. The TDM is more suited to forecast. Replica is from what we've seen is more like a micro simulation. Now, both systems will use LBS data, which is the cell phone data, which is very helpful in terms of helping us understand current traffic and travel patterns, right? So, but the answer to your question is, yeah, we're working in the very initial phases of what the city is proposing with Replica, and certainly not to duplicate, but on the contrary, how to build and work together to make better products.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Board? Not? Okay, thank you.
All right. So then moving on to the next item, which is item 13, the potential infrastructure federal stimulus program. So we wanted to put this item really to have a more of an open-ended discussion. We've been hearing there's a lot of chatter about an infrastructure bill coming from the federal government. Of course, it changes almost every day. We really don't know exactly when it's going to come or if it's going to come and when or how. But the important message here is that it's a good idea for all of us and all the different transportation partners of the MPO to be ready in case the bill comes out and money is made available. The program is going to look for shovel-ready projects, most likely, similar to what happened 10, 12 years ago with the ERA program. We were able to take advantage of that program. A lot of money came to the region that helped us complete some of the projects, namely the I-10 at Americas interchange. So the message here is, we don't know details. At least I don't know details, but the important message is all of us should be ready. The city, the county, the city of Socorro, Horizon City, as much as you can, advance your projects to be as ready as we can. We also, the Congresswoman Veronica Escobar also shared this letter that she sent to Chairman Pete DeFazio from the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. The letter is in your package. She is basically making the case for all the infrastructure needs of our region in El Paso, including transportation. So again, just I wanted to make you guys aware of that and to think about getting projects ready. And really, I would open it up to discussion to see if anybody else has more information or a better idea of what's to come.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? There are none? Okay. Thank you.
Right here. We're super proud. The farmers are super proud. All right, so moving on, Mr. Chair. Item 14, which is a fiscal year 21 Unified Transportation Program UTP draft funding targets. Again, when we put this item on the agenda, we were thinking that we would have a little more information on the process for the fiscal year 21 UTP. Gabby, if you can advance to the schedule. Next, there we go. So this is a schedule that was presented at the Texas Transportation Commission meeting in January for the development of the fiscal year 21 UTP. And it's showing that in May of 2020, this month, the draft UTP would be presented to the commission. So, we've been investigating and trying to figure out if it is going to the commission, because as you all know, we're very interested in making the case for El Paso's projects to be included in the funding for within the fiscal year 21 UTP. TxDOT has had some recent issues on their systems, so we barely got a hold of the agenda for the TTC meeting, which is happening next week, and the UTP is not included in their agenda, so there will be no presentation on the UTP. However, I understand that the UTP is still, in process, so we're assuming that the draft UTP will be presented to the commission in June. It's not on the agenda for May, and but we still need to make our message, our voices heard in Austin. So again, even though it's not on the agenda, we may consider making comments at the virtual TTC meeting happening next month. So with that, I don't have much more to say on that, but just happy to answer any questions. And I hope the questions are not hard, because there's a lot.
I don't have a question, but I got some additional. We've been told that the draft is still under development, and that will be presented draft in June. Will be good to provide comment next week to the commission.
Okay. Again, the commission meeting is scheduled for Thursday of next week, so we'll be coordinating to see if organize what we need to know to speak, but really coordinate messages are, because if it's not on the agenda, then comments would be received in the open comment, and certainly, want to make our voices heard, but we don't want to make repeat the same message multiple times.
Through the chair, this is Walter Miller. So if the committee, if it's important to get our request into the commission meeting next week, do we need to give you some direct priorities are? I thought our priorities were pretty. What is it that you need from us today on this? I didn't really.
Not much, right? The priorities have been established. The message is that we have done our and them, right? To make sure they have done our part of with all that's going on, right? Funding. That's also, I think, part of I have no information on how this is going or if it's going to impact the fiscal year 21 UTP funding levels. The information that we have so far shows no major changes due to COVID-19, but clearly it's going to have some impact. That we're going to feel that impact at some point in the near. But today we don't have much information how what the impact will be. To your question, Alderman Miller, yes, we have our priorities, and that's what we need to communicate to Austin.
And so, I think there should be, I guess, a coordinated effort. I mean, do you represent it on the TPB? Are those submitting? How's all that?
Yeah, I think the resolutions of support that we've gotten from the city, got the RMA board and all that, needs to be submitted to them, or that local support showing not only that we have our priorities, but also that there is regional consent. So at this point, immediate action would be to or open it to all of you, any of the member agencies here of the MPO, if you would like to make a comment or speak, and we'll set up who's going to say what and all that. But you already know what it is about.
I'm sorry. This is Walter Miller again. If we need to set up a meeting, coordinate that united message, I think that would be appropriate. But we're not looking at. You mentioned some. I mean, there was mention of shovel-ready projects. We're not reprioritizing, are we?
No. When we talk about any stimulus infrastructure bill, that's a separate thing from the process that we already had leading to the fiscal year 21 UTP. I mean, clearly, if the infrastructure bill happens, see what the rules are. It's been that they did not allow us, and Eddie Valtier, you correct me if I'm wrong. They did not allow us to replace projects that were already. They really wanted to bring new projects that were shovel ready, and it's one of the things that we would like to. Well, if when the bill comes, we'd like to see that they help us. I mean, that they allow us to replace projects that are, even though they may be funded, but if they're ready to go, well, use the federal bill to start those and use the funding for projects that not to delay but to use that funding for projects that may be ready in 2 or 3 years after that.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
All right. So let's Louisiana County Administrative Amendment from the county. I don't see this.
Sir, so Airport Road in Santa Teresa at the was a project that was funded through legislative funds back in 2018. The project recently wrapped up. It was a widening project in our MPO area. So the roadway from PNG all the way through the industrial complex there was no money for funds to build the pedestrian elements. So the county went through a process to STP large urban funds to Mexico to build the element of roadway from into the complex, and we limit up to Earhart Drive, and went through the board, and it was put into the STIP. They had gotten the limits off by to Constellation Avenue, about almost half a mile. With New Mexico Department of Transportation to see what we could do to change those limits, and New Mexico Department of Transportation, this wouldn't change the funding. It was $342,000 of S funds, and that it could be done administratively, and that they needed to move pretty quickly because these funds need to be obligated here in year 2020. So PO staff entered the project administratively into our STIP, and Doña Ana County addressed the change in limit to get their environmental document approved and gated. So in short, this is a change on the limits. It has been done administratively. Mexico funding for Doña Ana, and we are just coming back to report to you the change in the STIP those limits.
All right, any questions or comments? Roger.
All right, item 16, Executive Director Report. So I've got three items. Actually, it's two. The second and third bullets are together, but the first one is just to report on the Texas-Mexico Transportation Border Master Plan. There was the Binational Regional Steering Committee meeting was held here in El Paso for our local committee on April 21st. It's basically, you know, the TxDOT consultant team gave us a briefing of where they are. So this is just a heads up that the Border Master Plan is moving forward into the next phases. And but again, you know, just like with anything else, you know, we have to participate and make sure that our projects are well documented, so that when they are compared to the other border regions, they compete well. Because at the end of the day, there will be the Border Master Plan will be used to make recommendations for funding for projects. So again, this not much, but just a big head that the board to ask Tim Juarez and his team to give us a briefing here specifically to the TV. They did a good job last year, but you know, as they started moving forward, and of course now with COVID-19, some of these in-person meetings have not happened, and but I don't want them to, or I don't want us to lose more contact and the interest on this, because again, the Border Master Plan is a very important document for us here in El Paso. So I don't know if there are any comments or thoughts on that. All right, the second and third bullets that you see there are related to the fiscal year 20 UTP. So as you know, the commission and the TxDOT administration proposed to amend the UTP to fund a big project in Austin, the I-35. I think it's called the Capital Expressway, which is really to fix I-35 going through the central part of Austin. So the amendment was to program $3.1 million of Category 12. There was a public hearing held. There was a lot of comments made, not necessarily against the project, but it was more, citing concerns on the way that the commission was proposing to fund it, which is mostly with Category 12, and which is, taxpayer money. And then, the hearing happened on the 24th, and then the following week on the 30th, the commission at their meeting, they approved the amendment. I've got to say that it was not a unanimous decision. Very interesting that one of the commissioners, spoke against the amendment. He clearly stated that he was not against the project, but he was against the way that the text that was proposing to fund the project. So, but at the end of the day, the amendment passed, and the UTP was amended. One of the things that I also wanted to bring up is, and it relates to the fiscal year 21 UTP, because money is money, right? So by putting such a huge amount of category 12 on one project, and at the same time knowing that the funding projections for the state of Texas, and including for transportation, with Prop 1 and Prop 7 and the fuel taxes themselves, what is going to be the combined impact on all of this for us in El Paso, for the rest of the state? So again, we don't know those answers. Hopefully we'll get some clarity, like we said before, in the next few weeks or months. But so far, there's not a lot of answers, but obviously a lot of questions. And happy to answer questions, or open it up to discussion if anybody cares to say something about this topic.
Board members? Okay. Thanks.
All right, so that's all I have as far as the director's report, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I think Mr. Coronado wanted to make a quick announcement, I guess, before adjourning.
Hi, yes, I'm back. Sorry, I wanted to take this chance. This is a great opportunity for me to give you an update on Rider 44. I wanted to do that during my briefing, and I totally missed it. Given the audience and the membership of this board, and all the support that the state delegation has given the city of El Paso with this project, I wanted to thank you all and give you an update. So for the last 3 years now, since the first Rider 49 was approved by the state, we've been working with the local office here in El Paso with TxDOT on Rider 44 now, and we are really close now to getting the La PAFA finalized for the project between the city of El Paso and TxDOT. Over the last couple of months, we've been going back and forth on the language for the agreements. And since this is a really unique project and the funding source is so unique, we're using TMF dollars, the same funding that was used for the streetcar. It's such a unique project that it's taken us quite a bit of time to get the agreement finalized. But we're really close. We're hoping to take it to City Council in the next few months. But going back to the committee, the work that we've done with the committee since 2015 led to this funding that is now going to be used in the region for Zaragoza and Boda, and much needed projects in ITS and data collection, trying to improve the way that the traffic flows through those two ports. And so we're really looking forward to get the project actually commenced. We've done a lot of work up front on the design piece for the on system or within Texas right-of-way, but the design for off-system or local areas or federal areas hasn't been started yet until we have the agreements finalized. So again, we've done a lot of work with the mayor, state delegation. I also want to, take the chance to thank you all for the support. I think the region will benefit greatly from this funding, and we hope that we continue to do really good work with the committee, with all the stakeholders that can lead up to additional projects in the region that we much need for the bridge system, El Paso and Juarez. So thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Chair, we're down to the last item, which is adjournment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to staff, and thank you to the members of the TPB. The next regular meeting of the TPB is scheduled for 9 a.m. on June 19th, 2020. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any members who are opposed to this item? Okay, hearing none, motion passes.
Hey, Mr. Miller. Could you give me a call?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You all have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Happy Memorial Day.